Hi, so this is the effect we're going to be creating in this material tutorial. So it's basically one of those animated, signposts that you'd see in a lot of racing games, although to be honest, there's no reason why you couldn't put text scrolling across this or whatever you wanted. I'm just going to stick to this chevron pattern though for the purposes of this. So what we're going to do, get this, animated first of all, get it glowing to look like an illuminated panel. And we'll add the color procedurally so that you can change the colors to be whatever you want. So the actual textures we're going to be using will just be black and white, and then we add the color on later. So let's make a start on that. So that's what we're going to do. I've got an Unreal 4.16 first-person template here, although this should work in pretty much any version of the engine. Right, so nothing's been done already, so I need to bring in a couple of textures which I've got on my desktop, which I'll link in the description. So let me import these and then I'll explain what they are and why we need them. So grab those two, drag them into Unreal, and then full screen this again. Right, so what we've got, I've got this simple 128 by 128 chevron pattern, which is made, it's basically 12 by 12 made out of these blocks, if you know what I mean. So it's like 12 blocks across, 12 rows high. The reason is, that's going to give us this pattern. Now, if you were going to put text or something scrolling across, you'd make sure you want to stick to this kind of grid pattern, so it lines up with the pixels or cells rather on the display board. And as you can see, there's no color. So like I said, we'll add the color through the materials. I'll just get rid of this. We'll add the color through the material system so we can have this any color we want. Then the other texture we've just brought in is this. So what this is, to help us get that kind of display panel look, we're going to have a grid made out of these. So what this is a fully opaque black border, and then as you can see, it gradually fades to more transparent towards the center. So here towards the middle, it's really quite see-through. Then it fades to less and less transparent, and then you've got a fully opaque black border. So that's all we need. As I say, I'll link these in the description. So to start with, we'll make a brush to put the material on. The reason I'm using a brush and not a static mesh is because it's far easier to control how a material lies across a brush. Like if this was a mesh, we'd have to sort out the texture coordinates and everything, and that's really beyond the scope of this. So I'm bringing in a box brush. I'm going to make this 800 in X, 10 in Y, so it's quite slender, 200 in Z is fine, and then I'll just rotate that, lift it off the ground a bit, and then we'll start to work on our material. So we'll build this up in stages. So first of all, we'll get the colors and the appearance, then the movement, then the kind of LCD effect, then the glowing effect. Okay, so right click in the content browser, new material. I'm going to call this m_chevrons. If I can spell, there we go, m_chevrons. And in here, the first thing we want is a texture sample to read in that chevrons texture. So hold T, click for a texture sample, and select the chevron texture that I brought in, chevrons 128. It's so cool because it's 128 by 128 texture. You can get away with this being smaller, like 64, 64, 32, 32, but the way that texture compression works on smaller textures really starts to cause problems. Plus, 128 by 128 isn't too big anyway, so it's not going to. It doesn't take up too much memory, is what I mean. Okay, so we'll do this in stages. So we'll apply that, go back to here, throw this onto the brush, and this is what we get. So we can do a couple of things to get the tiling to be right. We can either affect one of the advantages of using a brush is we can use these texture scaling tools here, or we can do it through the material. So by selecting the brush here, I'm going to change the scale to 2 by 2 in UV, so that we get this instead, right? So select the brush, under surface properties, it's scale, U is 2, V is 2, apply, and then we'll get that. Okay, so what about replacing these colors out? Well, what we can do in here, rather than wiring the texture straight into base color, we can do a linear interpolate in between two different colors. So basically what we'll say is, anywhere that's black, replace with one color, anywhere that's white, replace with another color. You'll see how this works in a second. So if I hold 3 and click to get a constant 3 vector, and these can basically be used to store color information. Now you can put whatever colors you want in here. I'm just going to go for full red and full yellow. So we go, first of all, a red color, then hold 3 again and click, and we'll have a yellow here. So what would that be? Full red, full green, no blue. There we go. And then what linear interpolation does, if you're not familiar, so right click, linear interpolate. it takes two inputs, A and B, which will be our two colours, and then it blends between them based on this alpha value. So what you typically do here is put a value between 0 and 1, or black and white, and then anything that's fully black will be A, will get replaced with A. Anything that's fully white will get replaced with B. Anything that's in between will be a blend. So if we had on this texture a medium grey, it would be a blend of red and yellow. Here we only have full black or full white, which is why this works the way it does. So now we wire the texture into this alpha, wire the output from linear interpolate or lerp into base colour, hit apply, go back over to the map, and see what I mean. So it's replaced blacks with red and whites with yellow. So that's the colour. Now it needs to be moving. So the way we're going to do this is by modifying the texture coordinates and putting them into here. So the way this will work, we will want a texture coordinate node. So texture coordinates, you may have used these before to do like panning and tiling and mirroring, that kind of stuff, but you can also use them to animate textures like this. So we're going to take the texture coordinates, then we want to add to them. So add node is hold A, click. I mean, you can right click and go add, enter, but I find the keyboard shortcuts to be a lot easier. So get an add node, put the texture coordinates into the A. We're going to add some amount of movement on and then wire that into this UVs pin on the texture. Now for our movement, because we want to move in steps, like it's not a constant movement, like the texture kind of jumps across the surface in stages, we want something called a stepping pan at time. And what this will do, exactly what we want, it allows us to control the like stepping of this texture across the surface. This will look terrible at first, so if I hit apply and go back over to the map, yeah, this is what we get to start with. So clearly we need to do some, we need to change some settings here. So back in the material, we want 3 of these pins need to be set up basically. So in the time speed one, we want to wire a constant value. So hold 1 and click. Wire that into time speed and change that value to 0.1. See, so that kind of slows things down. So if you went to apply now and had a look, we've changed the speed at which that's that going, but it's not doing what we want still. Now we want to say how much do we jump. So here we want a vector 2, as it says here, v2. So hold 2 on the keyboard, click, wire this in to jump amount per step. And this wants to be -12 for R and 1 for G. Now the reason it's -12 is because if you remember, my texture it's basically 12 by 12 of these boxes. So we've got 6 white here, then 6 black, so 12 in total. That's why it's -12. Well, it's minus because otherwise it would be flowing backwards, but the 12 is because that's how the texture's been drawn. We don't want to go anywhere in vertical direction, so leave that on 1. And then add another constant, so 1, click, and wire this into number of steps per unit of time. And just by trial and error, I found that 48 works well here. You can fiddle with this, and we will do later. So now if I press apply, go back to the map, we've got this going on. So the next thing we want to do is add it so it looks like an LCD display panel. You know, those big display panels you see at racetracks in games and things like that. So that will be next. So back in the material, if we come over here, what I want to do is basically blend in a grid of this texture over the top of it, where we can see this texture where it's fully opaque, and we can see through to the arrows and the chevrons where it's more transparent. So the way we're going to do this is with another linear interpolate. So the shortcut for that is hold L, click, and what we want to do is get another texture sample, so T, click, and we want to set that to use that grid texture that we brought in. That wants to go into the B pin. The existing lerp wants to go into the A pin. Then we want to wire this output into base color, and for the alpha we want the alpha channel of the grid. So what that means is where the grid is fully opaque we'll see the grid texture, and like I said, where it's see-through we'll see the other texture, and where it's half see-through we'll see a blend. Now that will be far too big. In fact, let's have a look. So if I go apply, this will make a mess, but see, we need to apply some tiling to this. So back in here, right click, type texture coordinate, wire this into UVs, and then to suit the underlying texture, this needs to be tiled 12 by 12. So over here in U tiling 12, V tiling is 12, enter. apply this, and let's see what we've got. Okay, so that's starting to get towards the effect that we want. To see what's wrong with it at the moment, it's not illuminated basically, it's only taking the light that's hitting it from the sun there. So let's change this to be a more sunset scene just so you can see the problem. As you may know, there's a directional light in the first person template which basically says which direction the sun is coming from. So what I'm going to do here is just rotate that to be pointing just a little bit, just slightly up. Then if you click on the sky, press refresh material over here on the right, that will rebuild the sky dome to suit wherever the sun is now. So the sun is now there. And now you see the problem with our panel. Ignore the fact that it says preview, that just means I need to rebuild the lighting. Our panel's not giving off its own light, which is what we need it to do. So if we go back into the material, now how you get a material to glow and give off light is this emissive channel. So what we want to do is take the linear interpolate, the result of all our linear interpolations, run that into emissive, and what that will mean is red bits glow red, yellow bits glow yellow, black bits don't glow at all. Click apply. Now this won't be a very strong effect. See, as you can see here, it is illuminated, but it's not a very strong illumination. So what we can do, back in here, add another multiply box, run the linear interpolate into the A, run the output into emissive color, and then what we can do here is set the B pin to be whatever we want. So the higher you crank this, the more this thing's going to glow, and it will start to look silly after a while. I'm going to go for 7, apply that, and there you go. So now we've got like a nicely illuminated glowing panel. So actually that's really achieving the effect that I wanted. That's really all I need to do for this. Like I say, you could have text scrolling across your images if you wanted to. You just have to be careful to get it, make it all line up onto the grid. Now, just to show you how flexible this is, if we go back in the material, we could change both of these colors. So maybe the red can change to a blue color. The yellow can change to, we'll put like a purple color in it. There we go. And then for the speed, we'll change this 0.1 up to something like 0.25 instead. This should get to go a lot faster. There we go. Apply. And there you go. So we can change the color, we can change the rate it moves, all very simply. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to know how to do anything else with Unreal Engine, do leave a comment. And if it's something I know about, I'll make a video about it. Thank you.